The wrong door. The corridor was quiet, except for the sound of his hurried footsteps. Ryan Carter, a young space cadet, rushed through the metal hallways of Starship Valkyrie. His heart pounded. Today was his first day of training, and he was already late. "Great start, Ryan," he muttered to himself, scanning the digital map on his wrist device. Training Hall 7 was somewhere nearby, but these endless silver corridors all looked the same. As he turned a corner, he saw a large metal door with a glowing blue panel. The sign above it read, "Restricted Access," but in his rush, he barely noticed. This must be the shortcut, he thought, placing his palm on the scanner. The door slid open with a soft hiss. Warm air rushed out, carrying the scent of steam and something floral. Ryan stepped inside. The moment he did, he knew something was wrong. A strange place. The room was filled with thick steam, making it hard to see. The walls were made of smooth black metal, different from the usual gray corridors of the ship. The sound of running water echoed softly. Ryan took a step forward, confused. There were benches, lockers, and a long row of showers along one side. A locker room, but not just any locker room. Before he could react, voices filled the air, female voices. Ryan froze as shadows moved behind the steam. The fog began to clear, revealing several tall, athletic women standing near the showers. Some were holding towels, others adjusting their combat gear. Every single one of them was looking at him. A cold chill ran down his spine. The eyes of the Valkyries. There was no screaming, no panic, no throwing of objects. Instead, the women simply stared at him. Some raised their eyebrows, others exchanged amused glances. Ryan gulped. His brain screamed Royan, but his legs refused to move. One of the women stepped forward. She was taller than him, with short silver hair and piercing golden eyes. Unlike the others, she wasn't wearing a towel or casual clothing. She was in full combat armor. Commander Leora. Ryan recognized her instantly. She was one of the most feared warriors in the fleet, the leader of Valkyrie Squad, and known for her brutal training methods. A slow smile spread across her lips. "Well, well," she said, folding her arms. "A lost little cadet in our locker room. This is unexpected." A few of the women chuckled. Ryan's mouth went dry. I didn't mean to. I thought this was." Leora took a step closer, tilting her head. "Didn't mean to." Her golden eyes gleamed. "Then why did you unlock the door?" Ryan blinked. That was a good question. Why had the door opened for him? He had no clearance for restricted areas. Something wasn't right. No escape. He turned quickly, reaching for the exit. But the door that had opened so easily before was now locked. Lyra let out a small laugh. "Oh no, cadet. You entered by choice. Now you face the consequences." The air in the room shifted. The once relaxed women were now watching him closely, their expressions changing from amusement to curiosity. Ryan's instincts screamed danger. What? What kind of consequences?" he asked hesitantly. Leora smirked. "You see, our squad doesn't tolerate weakness. If a man walks into our space, he must prove himself." Ryan's stomach twisted. "Prove myself." The lights flickered. The smooth black walls shifted, revealing hidden panels and metallic structures. The benches disappeared into the floor, replaced by holographic training equipment. Ryan's eyes widened. The locker room wasn't just a locker room. It was a secret training arena. "The challenge begins." Leora cracked her knuckles. "You have 5 minutes to survive." Ryan's pulse spiked. Survive what? The answer came as soon as the words left his mouth. From the ceiling, training drones descended, their red eyes glowing. The room's temperature dropped, and the sound of whirring blades filled the air. Ryan barely had time to react before a plasma bolt shot toward him. He ducked just in time. The bolt sizzled past his ear, slamming into the metal wall behind him. The warriors didn't move. They just watched. "You wanted to enter our world," Leora said, arms crossed. Now let's see if you deserve to be here. Ryan gritted his teeth. His military training kicked in. He wasn't just some helpless cadet. He was here to prove himself. If they wanted a fight, he'd give them one. He took a deep breath, raised his fists, and prepared for the test of his life. The test begins. Ryan barely had time to breathe before the next plasma bolt fired straight at his chest. He threw himself to the side, landing hard on the metallic floor. Sparks flew as the energy blast struck the ground where he had been standing just a second ago. The female warriors surrounding him didn't flinch. They stood still, watching, as if this was nothing more than a casual test. Ryan pushed himself up, his heart pounding. What the hell is this? He gasped, his eyes darting between the glowing drones circling above him. Commander Leora smirked, arms crossed. You entered our domain, cadet. That means you accept the challenge. Challenge? What challenge? He had accidentally walked into their locker room, and now they were treating this like some kind of battle test. Another humming plasma drone whizzed past his ear. Ryan barely dodged, rolling across the floor. His military training told him to find cover, but there was none. The benches and lockers had all vanished into the ground. All that remained was an open battlefield and the cold stares of the warriors. One of the women, a tall fighter with scarred arms and a cybernetic eye, chuckled. He moves fast, at least. Fast won't save him, another muttered. Ryan gritted his teeth. They were toying with him. The game of survival. Leora snapped her fingers, and the simulation changed. The smooth black walls shifted again, revealing holographic barriers that flickered into existence around him. The drones retracted their weapons, but in their place, tall mechanical training dummies emerged from the ground. Each one was twice his size, built like a walking tank, and armed with shock batons that crackled with blue energy. Ryan gulped. Leora's voice was cold and calm. You have 5 minutes to survive. He didn't get a chance to respond. The first training dummy charge. Ryan jumped back, barely avoiding a swinging baton that would have knocked him unconscious. The second dummy moved from the side, aiming low. This one was smarter, trying to sweep his legs. They were fast. Too fast. His instincts screamed at him to fight, but how? He had no weapons, no armor, nothing but his training and his own 2 fists. The third dummy lunged, aiming directly for his chest. Ryan had no choice. He reacted on instinct, twisting his body and kicking off the ground. His boot struck the dummy's head, sending it stumbling back. For a second, he felt hope. Then the fourth dummy hit him from behind. Pain and realization. A shockwave of pain exploded through his back as the baton connected. Ryan crashed onto the floor, his muscles twitching from the jolt. His vision blurred. He could hear the warriors laughing. Too slow. Did you really think you could take a hit from one of those? Ryan gritted his teeth and pushed himself up, his arms shaking. His lungs burned, and his back throbbed where the energy baton had struck him. He turned to face the dummies. They were adjusting. Their movements had changed. They were adapting to his speed, learning his patterns. This wasn't a normal training session. This was a test of intelligence. If he kept reacting the same way, they would keep countering him. Ryan forced himself to take a deep breath, ignoring the pain. Adapt, change, outsmart them. Turning the tide. The next dummy lunged, but this time, Ryan didn't dodge. He did the opposite. He charged forward, moving inside its attack range. The dummy hesitated for just a second, just enough time for Ryan to grab its wrist and twist. Using his smaller size to his advantage, he forced the mechanical arm into a lock, twisting the metal at an unnatural angle. The shock baton was still active. Ryan shoved the weapon against the dummy's own chest. A bright crackling flash filled the air as the dummy short-circuited. Sparks exploded from its back, and it collapsed onto the ground, unmoving. The warriors watching went silent. Ryan panted, sweat dripping down his face. He barely had time to celebrate before the next two dummies rushed at him together. He had to think faster. A worthy opponent. Ryan moved like a shadow, slipping between attacks, redirecting energy, and using the enemy's own force against them. Instead of fighting head-on, he focused on weak spots. Joints, sensors, power cores. Within 2 minutes, he had disabled 3 dummies and was now standing face-to-face with the final one. This one was different. It was bigger, faster, stronger. Ryan clenched his fists. This was the last one. If he could beat it, he would prove himself. The dummy charged forward, swinging a massive metal fist. Ryan dodged left, then right, feinting, trying to confuse it. Then he saw it, a small flicker in its chest plating. A weak spot. He had one chance. With everything he had left, Ryan leaped forward, twisting midair and slamming his elbow straight into the weak point. The dummy shook violently, sparks bursting from its core. Then it collapsed, deactivating instantly. The room went silent. The verdict. Ryan fell to his knees, breathing hard. He had done it. Lyora and the warriors watched him for a long moment. Then, a slow clap. Lyora stepped forward, her golden eyes glowing with amusement. "Not bad, cadet," she said. "I expected you to break in 30 seconds. You lasted almost 5 minutes." Ryan groaned, still catching his breath. Was this some kind of hazing ritual? Lyora chuckled. "No, this was a test, and you passed." Ryan blinked. "Passed what?" Lyora smiled. "Welcome to the real Valkyrie training. Your journey has just begun." Survival mode. Ryan could still feel the electric sting in his muscles as he sat on the cold metal floor, his breath ragged. His body ached, but his mind was racing. He had survived. Against all odds, against a test designed to break him, he had held his ground. But something was wrong. The way Lyora and the other warriors looked at him, it wasn't just amusement anymore. There was something else in their eyes. Curiosity. Interest. Ryan wasn't just another cadet who had stumbled into their world. He was different, and they wanted to know why. A hidden purpose. Lyora crouched in front of him, her golden eyes glowing faintly under the dim artificial lights. "You fought well," she said, her voice calm but calculating. "But tell me, cadet, where did you learn to fight like that?" Ryan frowned, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Basic military training," he said. "Same as every other cadet." Lyora studied him for a moment. Then, without warning, she struck. Her hand shot forward like a lightning bolt, aiming straight for his throat. Ryan reacted on instinct. He ducked, twisting his body to the side, his muscles screaming in protest. He barely avoided the attack, but she was already moving again. A second strike, this time aimed at his ribs. Ryan threw up his arms, blocking the hit, but the impact sent a shockwave of pain through his bones. He stumbled backward, gasping. Lyora smiled. "Reflexes beyond standard training," she mused. "You don't just react. You anticipate." Ryan glared at her, rubbing his sore arm. "I just fought 4 giant metal dummies. Can I get a second to breathe?" The warriors behind Lyora chuckled. Lyora leaned in slightly. "No." Ryan groaned. "Of course not." She stood up and turned to the others. "Prepare phase 2. A few of the women raised their eyebrows. One of them, a tall warrior with violet hair, spoke up. "Are you sure? He barely survived phase 1. He's still standing, isn't he?" Lyora said. Ryan's stomach twisted. "Phase 2. What the hell is phase 2? He asked, slowly pushing himself up. Lyora smiled. "You're about to find out. The real test begins." The room shifted again. The holograms flickered, and the battlefield changed. The walls disappeared, replaced by a massive open simulation chamber. The air grew thick with the scent of damp earth, and a fake sky flickered overhead. projecting a burning sunset. Ryan felt like he had just stepped into an entirely different world. In front of him, a massive jungle stretched out, filled with thick trees and strange, glowing plants. The ground was soft beneath his boots, real soil. No, it had to be another advanced simulation. A low growl rumbled from the darkness between the trees. Ryan froze. Something was out there. Lyra's voice came through the overhead speakers. "Welcome to Phase 2, Cadet. This is the hunt." Ryan swallowed hard. "I don't like the sound of that." Leora continued. "The rules are simple. Survive for 10 minutes. If you can do that, you pass." Ryan exhaled slowly. "And what exactly am I surviving?" A second growl echoed through the jungle. Lyra chuckled. "Good luck, Cadet." The speaker clicked off. Ryan tensed, his hands clenching into fists. Then, the jungle exploded with movement. The predator in the dark. The first attack came from the left. A blur of black fur and claws shot out from the bushes. Ryan barely dodged as the creature slammed into the ground where he had been standing. He rolled away and turned, heart pounding. The creature was huge, at least twice the size of a lion, with thick, muscular limbs and a long tail. Its fur was pitch black, shifting like liquid shadow, and its glowing red eyes locked onto him like a hungry predator. Ryan swallowed. "Oh, come on." The beast let out a deafening roar and lunged. Ryan dived out of the way just in time, crashing into the ground and rolling back onto his feet. He could feel hot breath on his skin as the monster's claws narrowly missed him. He didn't have a weapon. He didn't have armor. And he was trapped in a fake jungle with a real monster. This was not a fair fight. Ryan turned and ran. The chase. The jungle was a blur as Ryan sprinted through the trees. He could hear the creature right behind him, its massive footsteps shaking the ground. Every second counted. His mind raced. Think. He couldn't fight this thing head-on. But maybe. His eyes darted to the trees above him. High ground. He gritted his teeth and jumped, grabbing onto a low-hanging branch. His muscles screamed in protest, but he pulled himself up. The creature slammed into the tree just as he climbed higher, shaking the entire trunk. Ryan kept moving, leaping from branch to branch. The trees were close enough that he could use them as stepping stones. Below, the creature growled in frustration, pacing back and forth. "Yeah, not so tough when I'm up here, huh?" Ryan muttered. Then the creature jumped. Ryan's eyes widened. "Oh, you've got to be kidding me." The beast latched onto the trunk, its claws digging deep into the bark. It started climbing. Ryan cursed and scrambled higher. 2 more minutes. He needed to end this. His eyes scanned the jungle, looking for anything he could use. Then he saw it. A large branch, barely hanging on to the tree above him. It looked weak, ready to snap. If he timed it right. Ryan took a deep breath and jumped toward the branch. The creature lunged after him. Ryan grabbed onto the branch with all his strength, and with a final desperate kick, he snapped it free. The branch collapsed. The beast had no support, and with a loud, furious roar, it plummeted back down into the jungle below. Ryan landed hard on another branch, gripping it tightly as he gasped for breath. The 10-minute timer beeped. The jungle flickered and disappeared, revealing the metal walls of the training chamber once again. Ryan lay on his back, staring at the ceiling, his chest rising and falling. Lyra's voice came through the speakers. "You just keep surprising me, Cadet." Ryan groaned. "Yeah, well, you keep trying to kill me." Leora laughed. "Welcome to the Valkyries." Facing Lyra, Ryan lay on his back, his chest rising and falling as he struggled to catch his breath. His muscles ached, his hands were scraped, and his lungs burned from exhaustion. He had survived 2 brutal tests, one against combat dummies, and another against a monstrous beast inside a simulated jungle. He had barely won, and yet he was still here. The holographic environment faded away, and the solid metal walls of the training chamber returned. The jungle was gone, but the adrenaline still pumped through his veins. He heard footsteps, slow, deliberate. Ryan turned his head just as Commander Leora stepped forward, her golden eyes locked onto him. She wasn't smiling this time. The warriors behind her stood in silent anticipation. Ryan had passed their trials. But now, he realized, the real test was about to begin. No more games. Leora rolled her shoulders, cracking her neck as she stepped into the training arena. "Stand up, cadet," she said. Ryan groaned. "Can I get, 5 minutes? Maybe some water?" Leora tilted her head. "You think an enemy will wait for you to rest?" Ryan sighed and pushed himself up, his arms trembling. He was running on pure willpower at this point. Leora smirked. "Good, you're learning." She took another step forward. Ryan swallowed. He had watched Leora fight in the Valkyrie battle recordings. She was faster, stronger, and more skilled than anyone in the fleet. He had barely survived against training dummies and a holographic beast. Now he was about to fight one of the deadliest warriors in the galaxy. "All right," he muttered, shaking out his hands. "How hard can this be?" Leora's golden eyes flashed. She moved. Ryan barely saw it, a blur of motion, and then pain. Her strike landed before he could react, slamming into his stomach like a plasma blast. His body folded as all the air was forced out of his lungs. He stumbled back, gasping, barely staying on his feet. Leora didn't stop. She swept his legs, and Ryan crashed onto his back. The moment he hit the ground, she was on top of him, pinning his arm with her knee, one hand gripping his throat. Ryan's vision blurred. His instincts screamed at him to move, to fight back, but his body refused to listen. Leora leaned in close, her voice quiet but sharp. "If I were your enemy, you'd be dead." Ryan clenched his jaw. She was right, and he hated it. Breaking the limit. Leora let go and stood, stepping back. "Again," she said. Ryan groaned but forced himself up. Leora waited, her stance calm, effortless. Ryan charged forward, feinting left before throwing a right hook. She dodged it easily, like she had seen the attack before he even moved. She grabbed his wrist and twisted, sending him flying through the air. Ryan hit the ground hard, pain exploding through his body. "Too slow," Leora said. Ryan gritted his teeth and forced himself up again. Every part of him was screaming to stay down, but his mind refused. Again. He rushed forward, aiming a kick this time. Blocked. Another strike, countered. A desperate punch, sidestepped. Leora was too fast, too strong, too experienced. Ryan fell again. His arms trembled as he pushed himself up. Leora watched him, her expression unreadable. "Why are you still fighting?" she asked. Ryan spat blood onto the metal floor. "Because." He looked up, meeting her eyes. "I refuse to lose." Leora's gaze narrowed. The warriors around them watched in silence. Ryan wasn't winning this fight. He hadn't even landed a single hit. But he wasn't breaking either. Leora tilted her head, then stopped thinking like a cadet. Ryan frowned. "What?" Leora took a step forward. "You're trying to fight me with your training," she said. "That won't work." She gestured around the room. "Look at them." Ryan glanced at the other Valkyrie warriors standing in a circle, watching them. Their eyes held no sympathy. "Every warrior here has faced death," Leora continued. "They don't fight with just skill. They fight with instinct." She leaned closer. "If you want to survive in this war, stop holding back." Ryan clenched his fists. Stop holding back. He wasn't holding back, was he? The awakening. Leora attacked again, faster than before. Ryan reacted without thinking. Instead of blocking, he moved with the attack. Leora's fist barely missed his ribs as he twisted his body to the side. She struck again. He dodged. Another attack. He slipped past it. For the first time, Ryan wasn't thinking. He was feeling. His body moved on its own, faster than his mind could process. Leora smirked. "There you are." She vanished, moving at a speed Ryan couldn't track. Then, a sharp impact to his chest. Ryan gasped as he was sent flying. But this time, he rolled with the landing, flipping back onto his feet. Leora stood across from him, studying him. A slow smile spread across her face. "You're ready." Ryan blinked. "Ready for what?" Leora cracked her knuckles. "For the real war. The final trial." The metal doors slid open. A holographic map appeared in front of Ryan, showing a massive battlefield. "This," Leora said, "is your final trial." Ryan stared at the map. It wasn't a simulation. This was a real mission. He looked back at Leora. "And if I fail?" Her golden eyes burned. "Then you die." Ryan took a deep breath. And he stepped forward, unlocking potential. The metal doors slid shut behind Ryan, sealing him inside the new chamber. Unlike the previous training rooms, this one was larger, darker, and colder. The air was thick with the hum of advanced technology, and the floor beneath him vibrated with unseen power. In front of him, a massive holographic battlefield flickered to life. It displayed a war-torn city, its skyscrapers reduced to rubble, smoke rising from the ruins. Strange, monstrous creatures crawled through the wreckage, their glowing red eyes scanning for prey. Ryan studied the map. He recognized those creatures. Zelfar drones, the most dangerous biomechanical warriors in the galaxy. Ryan clenched his fists. "This isn't a simulation, is it?" Leora stepped beside him, arms crossed. "No." Ryan exhaled slowly. He had trained, he had survived their brutal tests. And now he was being thrown into a real battle. A mission unlike any other. Leora tapped a holographic control panel, and the battlefield zoomed in on a specific area, a crumbling skyscraper surrounded by the enemy. Inside, a small blue beacon blinked weakly. "That," Leora said, pointing at the beacon, "is a distress signal from one of our downed ships. The Valkyrie squad was shot down and stranded here." Ryan's stomach twisted. "Their coordinates were lost in the chaos, and we've been unable to retrieve them." Leora's eyes gleamed. "Until now." Ryan frowned. "So what's the mission?" Leora turned to face him. "You go in alone. Locate the survivors. Bring them back." Ryan's breath hitched. Alone. Against Zelfar war drones. That was suicide. Leora smirked, reading his thoughts. "Don't look so nervous, cadet. You wanted to prove yourself, didn't you?" Ryan hesitated, then straightened his back. "Yeah," he said. "I did." Leora nodded. "Then suit up." The drop. Minutes later, Ryan stood in a launch pod, gripping the handles as the countdown began. He was dressed in light tactical armor, equipped with a plasma blade, an energy pistol, and a limited-use cloaking device. Not much, but enough to survive, if he was smart. The pod shook violently as it entered the battlefield atmosphere. Alarms blared. Ryan could see flashes of red lasers and explosions outside the small window. "Brace for impact," came the voice from the ship. Ryan took a deep breath. Then, boom. The pod slammed into the ruined city, skidding across debris before crashing against a broken wall. Silence. Ryan gritted his teeth, pushing the emergency hatch open. Smoke and fire greeted him as he stepped onto the battlefield. No turning back now. Hunted. The city was dead. Ryan moved carefully, sticking close to the shadows. Every step was calculated. His helmet's HUD scanned for movement. His heartbeat thrummed in his ears. Then, a low mechanical growl. Ryan froze. A Zelfar drone lurched into view, scanning the area with its glowing red eyes. It was massive, 7 feet tall, its metal exoskeleton shimmering under the burning sky. Ryan held his breath. He activated his cloaking device just as the drone turned in his direction. It stopped, sniffed the air. Ryan stood perfectly still, his heart pounding. Then, after what felt like an eternity, the drone moved on, disappearing into the ruins. Ryan exhaled slowly. That was too close. He checked his HUD. The beacon was still several blocks away. Time to move. The survivors. After weaving through the city's destroyed streets, Ryan finally reached the beacon's location. The building was half collapsed, its structure unstable. He activated his helmet scanner, picking up 3 life signatures inside. They were still alive. Ryan pushed through the wreckage, stepping over debris and broken pipes. Then he heard it. Voices. Weak, but determined. He turned the corner and saw 3 injured Valkyrie warriors leaning against the rubble. Their armor was scorched, their weapons out of power. One of them, a young woman with short red hair, looked up in shock. "You're human," she rasped. Ryan nodded. "Rescue team, can you move?" The woman exchanged looks with the others. "2 of us can. But she's..." Ryan followed her gaze and saw another warrior, bleeding badly, unconscious. His gut tightened. "We're not leaving her behind," he said. The red-haired warrior smirked, despite her injuries. Didn't think humans had that kind of courage. Ryan kneeled next to the unconscious warrior and lifted her over his shoulder. "Guess you haven't met me yet." The other 2 chuckled weakly, pulling themselves up. Ryan activated his comms. Package secured. Requesting extraction. Silence. Then, static. Lyra's voice came through, but barely. "Ryan, you need tow." The transmission cut off. Ryan's stomach dropped. Something was wrong. The final stand. A loud metallic shriek echoed through the ruins. Ryan turned, and his blood ran cold. A Sci-Fi hunter. It was bigger than the other drones, standing almost 10 feet tall, its metal armor reinforced with alien plating. Its eyes locked onto Ryan and the injured Valkyries. Ryan took a slow breath. No extraction, no backup. He adjusted his grip on the unconscious warrior. "Guess we do this the hard way." The hunter roared, charging at them. Ryan drew his plasma blade. And the real fight began. The truth revealed. The Sci-Fi hunter charge, its massive metal frame shaking the ground with each step. Ryan didn't move. He didn't run. He didn't panic. Instead, he waited. The creature raised its clawed arm, aiming to crush him and the injured Valkyries behind him. Ryan tightened his grip on his plasma blade. The moment the hunter swung, Ryan moved. With inhuman speed, he rolled to the side, dodging the impact as the ground cracked beneath the force of the hunter's attack. He pivoted, swinging his plasma blade in an upward arc, aiming for the exposed joints in the hunter's armor. The blade struck. Sparks flew. But the hunter was faster than he expected. It spun, its tail lashing out like a whip. Ryan barely got his arms up in time to block the hit, but the sheer force sent him crashing into a pile of rubble. His ears rang. His chest ached. But he got up. The Valkyries behind him stared. The red-haired one whispered, "No human moves like that." Ryan ignored her. His mind was sharp, his heart beating steady. He wasn't just fighting anymore. He was calculating. A warrior's instinct. The hunter roared, charging again. Ryan ran toward it. The creature swung, but this time, Ryan was ready. He ducked low, sliding beneath its attack. As he passed under its arm, he slashed at the exposed wiring near its ribs. The hunter howled in pain. Ryan didn't stop. He jumped, landing on its back, grabbing onto the spinal plating as the hunter thrashed wildly. Ryan had seconds before it threw him off. His plasma blade flared to life, and with one clean strike, he drove it deep into the hunter's neck. The beast froze, then collapsed. Dust settled as the hunter's glowing red eyes dimmed, its body finally going still. Silence. Then, cheers. The red-haired Valkyrie let out a shaky laugh. Damn, remind me to buy you a drink after this. Ryan stepped off the dead hunter, breathing heavily. It was over. Or so he thought. Then his helmet crackled. Lyra's voice came through, this time clear and urgent. Ryan, get out of there. Now. Ryan's stomach dropped. What? Lyra's voice was tense. You just set off a beacon. The XL-FAR know you're there. They're coming. Ryan clenched his fists. Of course. The hunter's death had triggered an alarm. They weren't safe yet. Escape or fight. Ryan turned to the Valkyries. Can you move? The red-haired one nodded. Yeah. But she gestured at the unconscious soldier, still bleeding. Ryan didn't hesitate. He knelt down, lifting the unconscious Valkyrie over his shoulder. We move. Now. The group stumbled out of the ruined building, making their way toward the nearest extraction point. Then, the ground shook. Ryan froze. A deep, guttural roar echoed across the battlefield. The air around them grew colder. One of the Valkyries swore. No way. Ryan turned, and his blood ran cold. A massive XL-FAR war machine, easily the size of a small starship, was rising from the ruins, its glowing crimson eyes locking onto them. A Titan-class XL-FAR. Ryan had heard about these things. Entire fleets had been destroyed by a single one. And now, it was coming for him. The red-haired Valkyrie whispered, We're dead. Ryan exhaled. Not if I have anything to say about it. He tapped his comms. Lyra, I need an evac. Right now. Lyra's voice came through sharp. We're sending an extraction team. Hold your ground. Ryan narrowed his eyes. Yeah, like that was gonna be easy. The Titan class charged. Ryan's mind sharpened, and he ran straight toward it. The breaking point. The XL-FAR Titan swung a colossal metal fist. Ryan dodged left, barely escaping as the ground beneath him shattered. He leaped onto a broken piece of the collapsed building, climbing higher, gaining position. Think, Ryan. Think. A direct fight was suicide. He needed an opening. Then he saw it. The Titan's power core, exposed, just beneath its chest plating. But there was no way to reach it. Unless. Ryan's heart pounded. This was insane. It was also the only shot they had. He activated his cloaking device, disappearing from sight. The Titan paused, scanning the battlefield, confused. Ryan moved. Fast. He sprinted across the rubble, jumping from ledge to ledge, moving like a shadow. The Titan turned its massive head, still searching. Ryan leaped. He landed directly on its back. The Titan roared, shaking violently, trying to throw him off. Ryan gritted his teeth, holding on for dear life. Then, he drove his plasma blade straight into its power core. The Titan froze. Its body convulsed, energy surging wildly through its circuits. Ryan barely managed to jump off before the entire war machine exploded in a blinding fireball. The shockwave sent him flying. He hit the ground hard. Then, darkness. The awakening. Ryan's eyes fluttered open. He was alive. Pain throbbed through his body, but he was breathing. He blinked. He was no longer on the battlefield. Instead, he was in a medical bay aboard the starship Valkyrie. A familiar voice spoke. You did well, cadet. Ryan turned his head. Lyra. She stood beside him, arms crossed, her golden eyes filled with something Ryan had never seen before. Respect. Ryan groaned. Did we win? Lyra chuckled. We did more than win. She leaned forward. You killed a Titan-class XL-FAR. Do you have any idea what that means? Ryan swallowed. I got lucky. Lyra smirked. No, it means you just became the most dangerous human alive. Ryan's heart pounded. He wasn't just a cadet anymore. He wasn't just a fighter. He was something more. And the galaxy was about to find out. A new beginning. The soft hum of the Starship Valkyrie's engines thrummed through the floor beneath Ryan as he lay in the medical bay, staring at the ceiling. His body ached, his muscles protested every small movement, and his mind was still trying to process what had happened. He had survived an impossible mission. He had faced a Titan-class Selfar, and won. And now, he wasn't just another cadet anymore. Ryan sat up slowly. Across the room, Leora leaned against the wall, arms crossed, her golden eyes studying him. "You're awake," she said. Ryan exhaled. "Yeah, I think." Leora smirked. "Good, because we have a problem." Ryan frowned. "What kind of problem?" Leora pushed off the wall and walked to the bedside console. Tapping a few commands, a holographic display flickered to life, showing a galactic news feed. Ryan's eyes widened. There, on every major news channel, military briefing, and underground broadcast, was his face. Mysterious human cadet, Hill's Titan-class Selfar, a new hero or a new threat. Ryan swallowed hard. He had become a legend overnight. The weight of a name. Ryan stared at the holographic images of himself. Battle footage from his helmet cam showed him facing down the Titan, delivering the final blow that had brought it down. The video had spread across the galaxy like wildfire. The Valkyrie warriors had already respected him, but now the entire universe knew his name. Ryan ran a hand through his hair. "Great, I'm famous. That's not terrifying at all." Leora chuckled. "Oh, it gets worse." She tapped the console again, switching to another news report. This one wasn't from a human source. It was from the Selfar. Ryan tensed. The broadcast was filled with alien glyphs and symbols. But the message was clear. A deep, guttural voice spoke through the translator. "The human known as Ryan Carter has committed an act of war. The Titan's death will not go unpunished. He is now marked for extermination." Ryan's stomach dropped. Leora turned to face him. "Congratulations. The Selfar have declared you their #1 target." Ryan groaned, rubbing his face. "Fantastic. Exactly what I wanted." Leora smirked. "Oh, it gets better." Ryan sighed. "Of course it does." She brought up one final report. Ryan's breath caught. This wasn't a newsfeed. It was a bounty listing. His name, his face, his confirmed kill of the Titan, and the reward for his capture or execution. 100 million credits. Ryan blinked. "That's a lot." Leora nodded. "You're now the most valuable human in the galaxy." Ryan exhaled sharply. "That's not a good thing, is it?" Leora smirked. "Depends. Do you like being hunted?" Ryan didn't answer. Because he already knew the truth. The first assassin. The moment Ryan left the medical bay, he could feel the difference. The Valkyrie warriors watched him with new eyes. Not just respect, but curiosity, caution, and something else. Expectation. He wasn't just one of them anymore. He was a symbol. The human warrior who killed a Titan. And that made him a target. Ryan had barely stepped into the main training hall when his instincts screamed at him. He dodged just in time. A plasma knife whizzed past his ear, embedding itself in the metal wall. Ryan spun around. A masked figure in a black combat suit lunged at him. An assassin. Ryan barely had time to react as the figure threw another knife, aiming for his throat. He twisted his body, catching the attacker's wrist before the blade could connect. For a split second, their eyes met. Cold, calculating, inhuman. Ryan gritted his teeth. Whoever this was, they weren't just some random bounty hunter. They were a professional. Ryan countered instantly, twisting the assassin's arm and slamming his elbow into their ribs. The attacker didn't flinch. They moved like a shadow, slipping from Ryan's grip and vanishing into thin air. Ryan's mind raced. Stealth tech, cloaking. Whoever this was, they were good. A whisper of movement behind him. Ryan ducked as a blade swung for his neck. Too close. Ryan spun, catching the assassin's wrist and flipping them over his shoulder, slamming them onto the training mat. He grabbed the masked figure's throat, pinning them. "Who sent you?" he growled. The assassin laughed softly. "You're already dead, Carter," they whispered. Ryan's blood ran cold, a sharp pain in his side. Ryan gasped as he felt a needle pierce his skin. Poison. His vision blurred. The assassin grinned beneath the mask. "Enjoy your last few minutes." Then, they were gone. A race against time. Ryan staggered, his heart pounding wildly. His limbs felt heavy, his breath short. He barely managed to activate his comms. "Leora," he gasped. "Poisoned." Leora's voice came through instantly. "Where are you?" Ryan collapsed to his knees. His vision darkened. Footsteps. Shouting. Then, nothing. The awakening. Again. Ryan's eyes snapped open. A familiar white ceiling. The medical bay. Again. He groaned. "Seriously, this is becoming a habit." Leora stood at the foot of his bed, arms crossed. "You survived." Again. Ryan blinked. His head felt clear. The poison, it was gone. "How?" Leora smirked. "We got to you just in time. Our medics neutralized the toxin." Ryan exhaled. "Good, because I'd really hate to die before lunch." Leora chuckled. Then her expression turned serious. "The assassin was exhale far," she said. "And they're not stopping." Ryan sat up. "Meaning?" Leora's golden eyes locked onto him. "Meaning you're no longer just a soldier, Ryan." She leaned forward. "You're a symbol. A warrior. A legend." Ryan swallowed. "And?" Leora smirked. "And legends don't get to rest." The final shot. Outside the starship Valkyrie, the stars stretched endlessly into the void. And somewhere, deep in the blackness, an army was gathering. The XL-FAR were preparing for war. And at the center of it all was one human, Ryan Carter, the man who killed the Titan, the man they now feared, and the man they would stop at nothing to destroy.